Welcome to November. My name is Kisami from Showzone, and welcome to another edition of Best in Show, likely one of our last Best in Shows of MLB The Show 22. We may have one depending on the collection rewards in a few weeks to see how good they are, but this is going to be one of the last content drops with the most amount of players that you'll see before the end of MLB 22 leading into MLB 23. So let's get right into it with the true overall squad. As a part of the true overall squad, there are only 4 players that haven't broken the 100 threshold, and all 4 of those players are relief pitchers. But first, let's start with the starting lineups. Every player that you see here in the starting lineup is over a 106, and again, a quick refresher, true overall takes the weights from the developers and puts them towards the rankings of the players if it were to go over that 99 threshold. So that's why all of these players are 7 points over what that 99 maximum would be normally. Starting at catcher, we have Finest Mauer from the Fall Stars program. There are a couple other catchers that are close by in terms of rating, but Mauer does get the edge at catcher. And for a few of these other positions, such as first base, we do have some players playing in their secondary positions, such as Stan Musial. The true overall scores that you see on the screen are for players in their normal position, doesn't necessarily reflect the position that they're at for the best starting lineup possible. So again, the Finest Musial is even better at first base than what's shown there, a 108.21 in right field. Moving on to the rest of the infield, a few finest cards from the 2022 series, Jose Altuve and Jose Ramirez, fairly close to a 108, but not quite a 108. Barry Larkin still the best shortstop. He is the headliner reward from pack number 50. Just edges out Jimmy Rollins with some of that extra power. There are a lot of cards too that will fit into different positions. So for example, Honus Wagner is your best left fielder, but he can play literally anywhere. You'll see that with a few players on the bench too. The Takashi series Ken Griffey Jr. is one of the best cards in the game at center field. And Gary Sheffield, he can play left field, right field, or even third base. We think he's best over in right field at the current moment, but let's look at the bench as well. Again, quite a few players that can play at different positions. So Jimmy Fox can play catcher, first base. Hank Aaron and Vladimir Guerrero Sr. are both tied with the same exact score of 108.58. Hank Aaron can play pretty much anywhere in the field. Julio Rodriguez is also one of the best outfielders in the game by true overall. He is one of your bench players. And Babe Ruth, who can play outfield as well as first base. Each of these cards is over a 107, aside from Honus Wagner, but again, Honus is very versatile and can play literally anywhere except for catcher. We'll take a look at some of the first cards out. A lot of them are first baseman or outfielders since the weights tend to be a bit heavier towards those positions. So Albert Pujols' milestone card, for example, is one of the best cards in the game. You could very well plug him into first base or third base. Pete Alonso and Nolan Arenado are also very viable options from this last program, or Vlad Guerrero Jr. And of course, at shortstop, if you're not really keen on using Barry Larkin, or if you've completed the collections for Jimmy Rollins and want to give him a use, definitely go ahead. He is another viable option at shortstop. For the pitching rotation, the best card in the game in terms of true overall is the new 2022 Finest Jacob deGrom, a 111.55. And as we mentioned on our socials, we had the All-Star Game card deGrom from last season. That card was a 106, so this is a whole 5 points better than the All-Star Game card that gave so many people trouble last year. Good luck hitting Jacob deGrom. Other than that, a few new cards from recent programs and drops. We have Walter Johnson's Takashi card in second place, followed by Greg Maddux, the milestone no-hitter Roy Halladay, and Corey Kluber rounds it out at a 107.01 for the rotation. Moving on to the bullpen, again, a few hundreds, but a few that are just below that 100 mark. They just don't rate relief pitchers and closing pitchers as highly as some of the other positions. But in terms of the best true overall bullpen you can build, we have the Takashi series Dennis Eckersley at the top, followed closely by the Classics program from earlier Finest. One of the things I thought was curious is that the Finest Mariano Rivera and the monthly awards Jose Alvarado have the exact same true overall score, a 99.25. Devin Williams, another great card that we'll talk about more in a moment, at a 99.16. Moving on to the meta overall squad, there are a few changes. There are a few cards that stuck around, so a lot of the lineups are starting to look pretty similar in both true overall and meta scores. So for example, you have Joe Mauer and Stan Musial, again locking it down at catcher and first base. Ken Griffey Jr. in the outfield. Arenado makes the squad for meta overall. He was one of the first few players out. He is your best third baseman in the game. And then a few different options for the meta overall squad. And again, some of these cards are very versatile with where they can play. So for example, Alfonso Soriano is your best second baseman, but he can play the outfield. Quite a bit of center fielders that could be out there. We have Griffey in left field currently, just to make way for the new 2022 Finest Mike Trout card. There's a .05 difference between those two at their normal positions, but Trout would be a slightly better fielder in center field. Griffey would be better suited for one of those corner outfield positions. And you have Aaron Judge's milestone card out in right field. At shortstop, you don't have Jimmy Rollins, you don't have Barry Larkin, you have Trey Turner, who was one of the best cards from the previous games. They were kind of trying to switch up the meta of the game and release him later in the season so he wasn't so dominant early on, but now we finally have a Trey Turner card for those of you who used him in past years. He is your best shortstop option in terms of meta overall. On the bench though, Jimmy Rollins and Barry Larkin are good enough to take some bench spots. We also have Vlad Sr., again, his finest card, one of the best meta and true overall scores. Player favorite, Brian Reynolds, his 2022 finest card is the second best bench player on the team. And at catcher you have Joe Torre, the second best catcher option behind Joe Mauer. We can also make the argument for Jimmy Fox if you want to use him at catcher, but again, meta really takes into effect fielding, blocking, pop time, all of those things. So Jimmy Fox, while he would be a viable hitter on your squad, may not give you the best catching in terms of defense. Moving on to the rotation, we have our first chase set pack reward in quite some time. It's set 5, and you'll find Corbin Burnes' 2022 finest card in there. Corbin Burnes is one of those pitchers that's kind of stuck along on the meta overall squad, even though he's a lot less rated than like some of the other pitchers that you might find. He's just so dominant with his cutter and sinker combinations, really throws people off. And now he's your top meta score again with his 2022 finest card. Just below that is Jacob deGrom, who we went over is the best true overall score in the game. So that's a really healthy 1-2 punch there. Walter Johnson still makes the rotation as well. He's one of those cards that's been tough to get from the BR program, but he has a lot less buy orders than Mike Trout, so you might be able to get him a little bit faster. If you're grinding out the BR program, definitely go for Trout first, and then you can probably buy Walter Johnson after that. The rotation is fairly new, though. A lot of these cards that you see here are new additions, so rounding out the 4 and 5 spots are Roy Halladay's milestone card, and the 2022 finest Sandy Alcantara card, which is new, so 3 finest cards for starting pitchers. There's a lot of starting pitcher options that you could potentially use in your rotation that are new. We move on to the bullpen. The best card in meta overall, curiously, is from one of the classic packs that you get early on in the program rewards, and that is 2020 finest Devin Williams. He is a 101.28, which is the best meta overall score of the cards that we have in the game right now. There's only 5 that are over a 100, which are defined as truly endgame cards. So in terms of that endgame squad where they're over 100, you have 2 outfielders, you have Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Trout, and then you have 2 starters and a reliever. Devin Williams is the best of those, followed closely by the Takashi series Billy Wagner, the new Goose Gossage, and Aroldis Chapman from the Extreme program. All of those are a 98 score. And then you have a few 97s that have just been recently released, so Daniel Bard and Jose Alvarado in the last month or so, and a couple other 2022 cards, postseason Josh Hader and Edwin Diaz. So again, you have a couple lefties in the bullpen. A lot of those lefty cards that you're going to be facing towards the end of the season are going to be Alvarado, Hader, and Wagner. Let's take a look now at some of the cards that just missed the cut, and curiously, one of them is the new 2022 Finest Collection Rewards. There's 4 that you can get the more cards you earn. So starting at 15, you have Byron Buxton, who has max power, fielding and speed near 99. It's just his contact that a lot of people were kind of worried about, which, to be fair, he did bat fairly low against some right and left-handed pitchers this year. And again, with the max power, the more power you have in comparison to your contact, you hit more long fly balls as opposed to line drives. But the thing that kind of gets me going is the fact that this card is better than the one that you collect at 30 cards. So Paul Goldschmidt is objectively worse meta overall score than the Byron Buxton that you get for only collecting 15 cards. So if you're looking to fill out your collection, you get 18 from the program anyway, so you can easily unlock Byron Buxton. May not be worth the time invested to kind of get to 30 though, is the thing. These other 22 finest cards that are just out of the cut are Bobby Witt Jr., Adley Rutschman, and Michael Harris, so you have some options for catcher, infield, and outfield that are all very viable. You could kind of plug in and switch some of those cards from the starting lineup if you feel like you might be a bit better with them. The other catcher option that's really great is the Mike Piazza card that was released as a recent program reward. So he is just ahead of Adley Rutschman technically, but you do have quite a few strong catcher options, along with the previously mentioned Joe Torre and Jimmy Fox that could potentially play catcher. So there you have it, your meta and true overall squads. I would say based on a lot of the metas of these players, there are a lot more viable starting and relief pitchers that you get as part of this program. A lot of the cards that you might still have from previous programs in your starting lineup, like the outfield and infield for example, are still going to be some of the best options available. So for some of those packs that you're getting from the program, the finest program, definitely try and invest in some starting pitchers and relief pitchers. There are a lot of options that will help improve your team. And as always, these rankings are not the true best cards. Obviously, if there's somebody that you don't have the best swing with, there are some other players you can kind of plug in and play. These are just our best recommendations for certain cards at different positions based on some of the other options that there might be in the game currently. And again, we do have 2 more collection rewards. We might make a update video to this one in case they're very, very good to the point where we can't ignore them. My money is going to be a Takashi Shohei Ohtani reward, kind of similar to what we saw on the deluxe cover edition. I'm also going to guess Mickey Mantle for the Legend collection. He has a 98 card, and a lot of people were kind of up in arms with Mantle, as well as that first 99 Griffey that was released. So I have a feeling that they're going to definitely release an endgame Mantle that might be the best card we ever seen. That's what they said on stream. This is going to be the best card in MLB The Show history, and Mickey Mantle's one of the few cards that doesn't have a 99 that fits all 5 tools. Let us know if there's a player that you've been using so far from the 2022 Finest program, or maybe some of those other cards from previous Finest programs that you've gotten in the Classics packs that might be working better for you. We're always open with feedback towards our meta overall scoring system on our website. And for more, you can visit showzone.io, use our team builder feature to build your own meta or true overall squad. We're just about at the end of MLB The Show 22, however, and as we get closer to the winter time, we're going to have more news and updates on MLB The Show 23 as we learn more. Maybe a few speculation videos as well for what we might expect for gameplay updates, cover athletes, things like that. Be sure to subscribe for more content, and again, our website is showzone.io. But that's going to do it for now. Signing off, this is Kasabi from Showzone, and enjoy the Finest program.